Hello guys, so today we'll be starting a Firemaking script. I promised you to show you the steps on how to make a script in a Rollite client. It's not that hard, so let's get right into it. If you want to get the source code, you can get it at my GitHub page, and it's under Microbot, so you can basically just pull in the code from there. So let's go to my IDE. Here we go. So once you got the project locally, you can start off by opening the plugins folder, and in there should be a Microbot folder. Let's see where it is. Search, and here it is. You can open that one, and it contains all the scripts that I've basically wrote in the past couple of months. So if you want to create a new script, you can basically add a new package. Let's call it Firemaking. So there it is. And now an easy way to have a skeletal script is I created this example folder. You can basically just copy all of those files and add them into the Firemaking package. Say add, and there we go. And now we simply rename them. So refactor rename. This will be the Firemaking config. Rename Firemaking script. Yeah, it will update some of the references. That's okay. Rename Firemaking plugin and the Firemaking overlay. There you go. So now that we have all of that covered, we can delete all of this code, just clean it up a bit. Yeah, there's some code from other scripts. There you go. This is basically the setup that you need. Let's see if this is empty. Yes. Overlay, you can leave it. It's not that important. And then you can go to the Firemaking plugin file, change the name of example script to Firemaking script. There we go. Just a bit nicer. You can do the same for the overlay. Firemaking overlay. There we go. And then you can change the name. Instead of micro example, you can say micro Firemaking. Firemaking and Firemaking. There we go. So now that we got the basics, we can save this one, and you can try and start running your client, and we'll see if the script has been added. 1 second. So here is my client. Let's go and check in our scripts, and there we have it. So the Microbot Firemaking plugin. So step 1 has been done successfully. So we'll go in the Firemaking script, and this is basically our main thread that we'll be running the script on. So I have an interesting Reddit post about the client thread and like multi-threading and why we set it up this way. You can find it on the Discord or the Reddit post. There is more information about that. So let's start. So when creating a script, you always have to think about the game loop. So the script we're writing here is Firemaking. So let's think about the steps that we have to do when training the skill. So the first thing that we have to do is fetch the logs that we want to burn and a tinderbox from the bank. The second step, once we have the tinderbox and logs in our inventory, we want to find an empty spot. Find an empty spot to start firemaking. Once we found the empty spot, Firemake will basically have to loop over all the logs that we have in our inventory. So use tinderbox on logs until inventory is empty. Well, until inventory has no logs left. And then the last step, once we have, once the game loop of firemaking has been done, we have to go back to the bank and fetch the logs again. So yeah, walk to the bank. But you will see later on that these, the first and the last step is basically one step. But we'll start with some methods right here. So most of the time I just try to split up things in methods depending on how lazy I am. But right now we'll create a method for fetching the logs. So let's create a boolean fetch logs and tinderbox. We'll have a boolean that says do we have a tinderbox, type of logs that we want to do, that we want to find, and boolean has logs. So to fetch the logs and the tinderbox from, oh, I have a typo here, tinderbox. To fetch the logs and tinderbox from the inventory, we have already existing method, so we can go to rs2 bank, basically utility class for banking, and in there we can say use bank. This will basically just click on a bank booth if it's close enough. This will open our bank interface, and after that we can start adding some logic. If we do not have a tinderbox, then we want to withdraw the tinderbox, and we also want to in any case withdraw item all. This has a check inventory, so it basically will check if the item is already in your inventory, so just say true, and then in there we can say the type of logs that we want to withdraw, which is basically an which basically comes from a parameter pass through in here. So it's a boolean, so we have to have a return statement, so just say return true. Now we only want to use the bank if the bank is not open yet, so we also have a utility function for that. If the bank is not open, then we want to basically open the bank, which is use bank, and then it will start withdrawing and so on. So this is basically the first step. So let's add it in here. Fetch logs. Do we have an tinderbox? So let's tinderbox equals inventory as item. Tinderbox inventory is again a utility class which we can utilize. So just to have a tinderbox. The logs, we want normal logs to be withdrawn from the bank. And do we have the logs? Let's do that in here. Inventory has item logs. Up in here, and we can create constant up in here, logs, which is basically a string, logs, which is basically just a string if we ever want to change the type of logs. We simply have to change it upon here, and it will be reflected in all of our code. So we'll check. That's all for that. Now, in most cases, we want to have some sort of status, so we know in what part of the script that we are, because all of the methods will come underneath each other. So it's best to have some sort of status. We'll create that with an enum. So let's create a fire. No. The best thing to do is just create a package first, enums, and then in the enums we can add a enum, which is a firemaking enum. Firemaking. Firemaking status, and in there we'll have the first status is fetch logs. When we're fetching logs, find empty spot is when we find the spot to start firemaking, and then the last one is just firemaking. So that's that. We'll go back. Let's create a variable in here, and we'll create a firemaking status in here. A variable which starts at the fetch logs. So when the script starts, we'll start fetching the logs. And then in here, annoying notifications. Can I disable them? So once we're in here, we'll start checking the status. We'll do it basically in our method. So we only want to execute this method if our fire, how did I name it? If our firemaking status equals fetch logs, only then we want to execute this code. There we go. And we also still have the parameter has logs. So if we already have the logs in our inventory for some reason, you might start the script with already the logs in your inventory, then we don't want to open our bank and withdraw the logs. Then we just want to say set the firemaking status to find empty spot and return false. So we did not fetch anything. There we go. This one should be true. Yeah, just leave that at true. Then we want to start a second method. Find empty spot. Firemaking spot. Yeah, instead of passing the parameters, we can. I think it's better to not include the parameter there. It's okay. So then we only want to execute this if the status equals to find empty spot. Only then we want to execute that. Find empty firemaking spot. So we basically have to walk to a position. So I will take the Varrock West Bank. Yeah, is it Varrock West Bank? Yeah, I think so. We'll start there. So we need some positions, static positions. So we'll add them into a list. I already got them before, but I will show you how to actually get them. So start up your online client. In there you can just log in, yeah, whatever, and then in there we have our developer tools. There we go. Yeah, the script might already be okay. So in there we have our developer tools, and we can basically add this style location. So let's say we would start somewhere from here. We can basically take those three locations. So 3205 and 3429. So just basically take like 3 positions from there, and those will be added. So turn it off, go back. So we can just add our array of starting positions, and in there just create a new world point, and in there we can add the coordinations. So that's the first spot, second spot, and the third spot. So that's all for the starting positions. So after that we will have to walk from the bank to one of the starting positions. I also have a utility class for that, which is the walker class. Walk fast minimap, which is basically one of the fastest way to just select a point on your minimap. I will say starting positions, which is from random 0, so start until the starting position is -1. This doesn't really matter that much, but it will basically be a bit of a random clicks between the 3 locations, starting positions that we gave, and we have to do the length, of course. So after we've done that, we'll go to the next step, which is are we close enough to the starting positions to start firemaking? So to do that, we'll create a boolean, and we can check the local player and fetch the world location and check the distance to, let's say, the starting position, to the first starting position. Since the 3 starting positions are close to each other, we can safely just take the first one and check if it's like smaller than 6, which is close enough to actually start the firemaking process. So if we're not close enough, we want to basically stop in here. This basically will return false, and it will come back in this loop and execute a walk fast minimap, which basically just walks back to one of the positions. Most of the time this will be okay. Statements like this are mostly added because of lag or interruptions with the game client. Then we'll have to start firemaking, but first we have to check if the spot is empty. So to check if a spot is empty, we'll have to check the game object for firemaking. So to get the game object of a fire, we can simply create a fire. Wait a bit, yeah, it's a throwaway account, so yeah. So the firemaking ID, the fire ID is 26185. So now we have the ID. We can go back. So we'll have to go through the starting positions and check if one of the starting positions has no fire in it. If so, then we can start there. So we'll create a variable current firemaking spot equals NULL. So we currently don't have a firemaking spot, so we're gonna search for one. We'll create a for statement for each. So let's do it like that. Point firemaking spot starting positions. So we'll loop over our starting positions. Then we have a new utility class, which is the rs2 a game object. We can utilize that one, and we can use the find objects object. No, not by option, just find object. Then we can fetch the fire object, which was 2618, if I remember correctly. Yes, so this one. And then we want to give the world point of the firemaking spot. If that returns an UL, then we'll start. Then we'll set our current firemaking spot to the firemaking spot that we were looping, and we'll break. So this is basically to check if the spot has a fire underneath. So if the current firemaking spot is not a 0, then we'll walk faster on the canvas, which is the current firemaking spot. This will ensure we'll basically click on the tile that is free, and to make sure that we are on the right tile, we'll add an extra check, which will say, is the world location the same as our current firemaking spot? So basically the spot that was free. If so, then we want to go to the next step, and we'll set a status of the firemaking status to firemaking. So basically this will make it move to the next step. We'll have to add this one here. So there we go. So we have fetch, find an empty firemaking spot, and the last one is the burning the logs, basically. Yeah. So let's set it on here. Burn the logs. There we go. Do this step if we're if the status is firemaking. So if our inventory, let's add some extra checks first. So if our inventory does not contain logs, then we want to set the status back to firemaking fetch logs, because we do not have logs, and return false. Now if the the fire is we'll always check if the fire is underneath the player. So we basically can being lazy here, but copy this one basically. So find object, and then here we give the player's location. So if there's a fire under the player, if there's a fire underneath us, we can't do firemake. So we have to set our status back to the empty spots. Yeah, we have to find another empty spot. This is again just an extra check, and then we'll have a loop over all our logs. So as long as the status is firemaking, so as long as we're firemaking, we'll check our inventory first. Do we still have logs? If not, just break out of the loop. If we do, then we'll get our starting location. One sec. Do we need a starting location? Maybe we don't. Let's just try it the easy way. So we'll use the tinderbox on the log. So use item unsafe, which is basically unsafe is a way of clicking on an item without waiting. So it's a bit more dangerous, but in this case we'll use it because firemaking is pretty safe. We're only interacting with the logs and tinderboxes, so we're not doing anything else. So let's use that one. So interact with the tinderbox and interact with our logs, which is a variable right there. And then we'll have to wait. So whenever we're clicking tinderbox on a log, there is let's go back, let's log in and enable the players debugging. So when you enable that, you will see that your character has animations on it. So you can basically see the animation, and we'll basically need the animation whenever the character is turning, because once the character is turning, we can make sure that we did move, so we basically did do something, and we can execute the next step. So we have to check on the pose animation. Pose animation will be, I think, 1205. Let's go with 1205. 1205. So sleep until that's another utility function. So we have to sleep on the client thread just to be safe, because we're checking the player's animation. So we'll sleep until the client get local player, until the pose animation is 05. The time that we want to wait will take 30 seconds to be on the safe side, because if your firemaking is low the first times, it will take a while before you actually burn the log. So it will take 30 seconds just to be safe. You can play around with it depending on how high your firemaking level is. Excuse me. So that's done. We need a return statement. Let's just return true, whatever. So once we've done that, so we'll wait and then we'll do it again. So we'll use the tinderbox on a log, wait till the animation, check do we have logs, repeat. Okay, so I think that's all. So let's have a quick summary. So fetch logs on tinderbox, we utilize the rs2 bank class, which gives us the ability to check if the bank is open, use bank, and withdraw items. Then the next step, we find an empty firemaking spot. We use the getWalker utility class, which allows us to walk through on the minimap, and also allows us to walk on the canvas, which is the spot that we want to burn the logs. Then the last step is the burn logs, which is the easy one. We utilize inventory class, which allows us to use an item and then wait on a specific animation before we continue. So this is just the basic script. So let's see, do we have we still have one error, so that's an error. I'm gonna format this a bit nicer. Let's clean this a bit up. Let's see, did we forget anything? I don't think so. Has logs. We can basically just remove this one, and we'll add it in here. Inventory has item logs. Just a bit nicer to have less parameters in your signature. So let's test the script out. First run. Most of the time the first run will fail, but we'll see. There we are. So make sure whenever you're running the bot, that Microbot, this one on the low end here, is always on. we do see our Firemaking script that we made, so let's log in. There we go. So let's bank all of our stuff. There we go. And then we want to zoom out a bit. And let's start the Firemaking script. Here we go. So it starts with opening the bank, takes the tinderbox, that's right. Takes our logs. That's nice. It walks to one of the starting positions that we gave it. Exciting. Now it's walking on the canvas because it's taking the right spot. Alright, nice. Looks nice, yeah. It's going over all the logs. Amazing, yeah. So, yeah, this is a throwaway account, so as you can see, it will not always burn the log immediately, but the script does wait until until the character turns, and then it utilizes the tinderbox again. So this is basically just a quick example of how easy it is to write a script with the framework I set up. It's not necessary to use the framework I set up. You can make your own framework based on the RuneLite client. Most of my utility classes and methods are a bit dirty, and I need to clean up some of the methods. But if you know what method to use, it's really not that hard to create simple scripts like these. So we'll see if it actually banks after it completed all the logs. Some easy Firemaking levels. So let's see if it actually goes back to a bank. Yes, so that's also utility clause that we use, the rs2 bank. It will search for any bank boot that's close enough to click on the screen. Let's see that it does not take the same tile. Yes, it clicked. Yeah, that might be an issue. It basically clicked back on the first spot, so we could change that. That it never takes the same spot again, but yeah, for the sake of this tutorial, I will leave it at that. So yeah, this is just a basic script, and to show you that it's really not that hard. There you go. So if you have any more questions, feel free to chat in the Discord. I'm free to help if you're stuck or something. And other than that, happy botting. See you next time. Bye.